All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are at the Board Budget Subcommittee meeting today. Today is November 7th. This is for the November 9th board meeting. And at this time, we will ask our attendees to place their attendance in the chat. And I will report out that we have not received any public comment at this time. And once we've completed that process, we'll hand it to Trustee Zhang, who will begin moving through the agenda for us. And as a note, Trustee Prasad is unable to be in attendance today. He is traveling currently. And so we will just have Trustee Zhang with us leading the show tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome to today's November 2nd subcommittee meeting. And let's move to the agenda with any items with the dollar amount assigned. So the first one is 10.1, authorize staff to approve additional funding for a non-public school for 22 and 23 school year. And this is 119,000.
Yes, so this is placement at a non-public school for a student whose IEP requires placement in a more restrictive setting than is offered by Fremont Unified.
Yeah, this is just a typical item that we see when the students have need.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's move to 10.3, approve new, oh no, actually not. 10.3, approve new course proposal for junior high and middle school and high school. And I know that this one would definitely have a finance impact. So usually when there is one session, what is typically the expense?
So in general, this will not have a fiscal impact because what we're doing is approving courses, but that doesn't automatically add them to the master schedule. So once these courses are approved, if a secondary school wants to include them in their master schedule, they'll need to do that within the sections that are already provided to them. So these don't result in additional staffing automatically, so we don't anticipate an additional cost.
Okay, so sorry, I got a phone call. Just I'm going to silence the thing. So when they approve the schedule and add it to the master plan, and so do we have to hire a new teacher, or we're going to just assign teachers to teach these classes?
Well, if they are going to offer a course that would require new staff, they'll need to do it by offsetting some of their current staff. So for example, if they had a teacher who retired and they needed to hire somebody else to fill that position, they might hire somebody with different credentials in order to offer one of the newly approved classes. But in general, the board approving the new courses doesn't automatically result in additional staffing or additional classes.
I see. Okay, thank you. Let's see. 10.4, authorize staff to purchase Chromebooks and storage cards. And this one is using the gifts and donation from Fremont Education Foundation for the purchase of $100,000. And so my question is, the Chromebook usually costs like what, $400? I don't know.
I don't have that number with me now, but this is an expenditure from the FEF funds that are remaining. I don't have the per unit cost of the Chromebooks in front of me.
So my question is, do we actually have a plan to know that in the future, what other Chromebooks need to be replaced? And if the needs arise, do we know where we're going to take the money to pay for this?
Well, we are gathering our inventory of Chromebooks across the district, and we do know which ones will reach what we call end of life at the sooner date, and then those that have a longer period of time. And there's some area for review there, because end of life means that it's no longer being supported and the software updates won't function on it, but it doesn't mean that the device itself is non-functional. And so one of the things that we are most keenly aware of is how many Chromebooks we need in order for our students to complete their standardized testing in the spring, because those require updated browsers that have a certain security level that the state deems secure enough for the online testing. So with that, we focus on replacing those that are at end of life. We do not have a designated fund at this time set aside for large Chromebook refresh. We've been utilizing our one-time funds and trying to be strategic in how we do that.
Okay. So I remember that we just approved the purchase of over 1,000 Chromebooks. So that's still not enough.
No, we have a need for many more Chromebooks than we're able to purchase. So we will continue to utilize one-time funding to the best of our ability in order to replenish as many as possible.
Okay. So 11.1 approved purchase order for $8.4 million. And this is a standard item?
Yes, our purchase orders are standard. It's a little bit lower than normal, in part because our expenditures related to Fund 21 are lower than normal just by circumstance of when the billing is following and the work that's being done.
Okay. And 11.2 approved payroll warrants. And this is the $28 million.
So this payroll is higher than normal, and that's because it includes a mini run. It also includes our retro payments for the raises that have been recently agreed to and provided. So because of that, it's substantially more than our normal monthly payroll.
So this October, we would have catched up all the previous year's salary increase, and which is reflected this in additional, let's see, $10 million roughly. Is that
I would have to defer to Director Pasquale, but I think we will still have some PEMCA payments and a few groups that are going through the retro process.
So for this particular month, it is only the FADTA and FSMA salary increase, the retro increases, and the one-time payments.
okay?
SEIU would be next month or this month, and then CSAA would be, I think, sometime in January or something like that.
I see. And so when I look at your chart, you have two lines, like say October retro, the first line and then second line. What does that mean?
So let me just open up the attachment.
Usually you always report it with two lines for retro and the monthly end.
Yes. So usually what we have is the mini and the month end. So the reason why, let's say on the month end, there's two lines. One is for the direct deposits, and the other line is for the actual checks that we pay to the employees, because not all employees gets a direct deposit or wants a direct deposit.
Okay. So
But
the large amount is direct deposit, and then the small amount is
are the checks, actual checks.
okay, got it. Okay, thank you for that. Okay. So let's go to 11.3 approval of a new position. And this is $53,000 special reserve for capital outlay projects.
Yeah, so this is an additional position for Centerville Junior High School. And this is part of our construction project to transition from the junior high school to the middle school.
Mhm.
And what we have there is, due to the construction, there's a number of areas where we think it's beneficial to have additional supervision on the campus. And so we will be adding a temporary position for the remainder of the year for an additional supervisor position to
Mhm.
help ensure the safety of the students and the staff.
Right. This is Centerville Junior High, but we have another two construction going on in another two junior high schools, and which are fine. No need.
So they've had additional staff provided to them last year,
Okay.
but Centerville's unique layout is a reason why we're adding one more additional supervisor there. The construction, for example, at Thornton is a little bit in a different sequence and schedule and layout, and the line of sight is a little more clear for that staff. And so each site has some unique aspects to it.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. Let's move to even though we approve the athletic coaches, which will not affect the finance, right? Those are the routine seasonal hiring.
That's correct. And we have an established budget for our stipends for our coaches.
Okay. And 12.4, approved salary schedule for 2021-22 and 22 to 23. And I understand that these are just just a spreadsheet, right, to indicate all the schedules of different positions and then columns. So
Correct.
Mhm.
So when we give increases in the salary schedule, whenever they're ongoing increases, meaning the salary schedule itself is increased, we have to revise and bring forward for board approval a new salary schedule reflecting those increases. And the reason we have to do it multiple times if we do a multiple year increase is because of STRS and PERS regulations. When employees retire, the artifact that STRS and PERS will look at to confirm their salary and their placement is our board approved salary schedules. So whenever we reach a settlement with our employee groups or management groups, we have to revise those salary schedules and bring them forward for board approval.
Thank you. Let's look at 15.1. Approve the 2023 Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening Service, CCEIS plan. And this one is very comprehensive. And the dollar amount is 1 million. And this is just for this 1 year budget, right?
Yes, so we have been identified by the State Department of Education as being disproportionate in 3 key areas related to special education.
Mm-hmm.
And the agenda item describes those 3 areas. And because of where we fall within that process, we are required to approve a plan for comprehensive coordinated early intervention services. As a part of that requirement, we also have to set aside a specific percentage of our dollars towards special education. And so the dollar amount you see here is reflected of that percentage, and that is the money that is allocated to put towards the successful completion of the CCEIS plan.
So this percentage is a portion of the special ed?
Correct. And I will defer to our finance team on that percentage. I want to say that it's 15%, but I might be off a little bit.
You're
think
actually correct, CJ.
Oh, it's 15%.
15%.
Okay. So I read that there were several positions created for this plan. So do we? Well, the plan is a new plan. So when do we plan to hire those positions?
I think many of them are actually hired already because we've had a plan for the last 2 years. So what we're doing is revising the plan each year as we move forward.
Okay, great. I think that, this is a really important step to prevent those students and to give them to move them to the regular class, and instead of prolong the special ed student numbers. I'm so glad we're doing this. Okay, so okay, so the next step is you all tell me if I skipped some items. 15.6, receive information upgrade regarding the solar and energy storage project. Even though this is a presentation information, but we do have to make a decision by December's in board meeting to finalize the contract.
So yeah, what this item is an information presentation, and because it's such a complex item, we
Mhm.
want to bring it to the board and give the public two chances at least to review and discuss this. So
Mhm.
as you may recall, last year, the board gave us direction to proceed with Forefront Power, I believe is the name,
Yes.
to execute a contract.
Mhm.
And so what we're bringing forward is updated information on that process. And
Mhm.
then it'll give the board a chance for discussion, the public a chance for comment and communication. And then we'll bring it back in December. Associate Superintendent Hillman, is there other context there that's helpful to share?
I think the only other big update, besides some of the numbers being more finely tuned than the last time the board saw it in an open session, is that the contract itself has an option that we're going to explain that as of right now, the direction from the board was to pursue a power purchase agreement, a PPA.
Mhm.
And the new contract will still have that as the primary vehicle, and that there will be an option down the road, not in December, but at a later date, after the design of the whole system is complete, that the board can make a decision after December about whether to continue with the PPA or to try to find financing to buy the system outright. So
Mhm.
it's a nice option that oftentimes doesn't make sense to consider at a later date. But in this case, it does because of new federal rules that are coming out from the Inflation Reduction Act, which was just recently passed. So it's an additional benefit to the board to have this option after the design is completed. And we want to review that with the trustees at this meeting. But as you already mentioned, there's no decision being asked for at this particular meeting. The first decision point will occur on December 14th. That would be the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Right. I just want to make sure that we have all the questions answered and have time to respond before we make a decision on December 15th. And so I look at the, for people who are listening to our discussion, it looks like there's no brainer, to choose what do you call PPT? What do you call that versus a cash offer? Because the
PPA.
PPA, because the cash the saving is 27 versus 14, right?
Yes, but here's what's not being factored in because we don't have the details yet, is that under the Inflation Reduction Act, there is a huge financial incentive to any entity, including our district, that decides to purchase their system, because they'll give us, depends upon the details, potentially up to between 30 and 50% back on the cash. So what happens is the timing is such that those rules are still being developed exactly by the federal government. The law has been passed, but like we deal with at the state of California, the legislature will pass a law, but then it takes a little bit of time for the California Department of Ed to build the rules around this new law. The same thing's happening at the federal level. the law has been passed. The president signed it into law, but now it's up to the agencies in charge to develop the parameters of which a school district like us could apply for these funds. And they can tell us, do we have to come up with all the money up front and then they pay us back? Or do we show them an approved plan and then they give us the money and we use that to help build the project? We're not exactly sure. And so what this does, the format we've chosen, allows all of these questions to be asked and answered between now and December. And the board does not have to make a decision about pursuing an outright purchase in December. We can wait on that until the rules become clear, which won't be until the springtime.
Okay, but then what are we deciding on December 15?
You're deciding to take a very specific action. It hasn't been agendized yet, but that specific action would be to follow Government Code 4217, which would allow the district staff to enter into an agreement with a single entity to go out and begin the design and the procurement of a system that's going to save the district money. That's a specific action that has to be taken in an open hearing at a board meeting. That's what would occur in December. And you would be approving us to go forward with a contract with this company in December. We would then design the system. That's what you're approving in December.
Okay. So 1 year ago, we already agreed that we're gonna let them the forefront to do the work. So then I understand that we are trying to fine tune the contract terms. So
that's what you're approving in December, is those contract terms.
Okay, all right. So then I'm looking at, so we're talking about some specifics. Are we done with this? Let me see. We're talking about the pros and cons of resilience. What is that?
Resiliency was one of the items that the design team took away from the meeting with the trustees. And that resiliency was something that the board was very interested in exploring further to see if it was something worth pursuing at all school sites. And resiliency is very simply, when the power goes out, can we continue to run school with the power on? Can we use batteries? Can we use the solar system? Can we use car chargers? And so what the design team has come back with is, yes, there are certain campuses where that makes sense. And there are certain campuses where that does not make sense. And so those details are included in the packet, and we're going to review that. And part of the contract that you would be looking at to approve in December covers Forefront developing resiliency mitigations at certain campuses while committing to designing some at campuses down the road. So we're going to do some now and do some later.
Right. And so this is kind of like an open, it's kind of, we agreed, but we let them do the work, which is open. So do we have which would be in the contract? Do we have a clause to regulate them, what can be done at what price? Because they're still, yes, we do. Okay, great. Okay, so there is a lot of discussion on that. Okay. I see, I understand. Okay, all right. Thank you for that. So let's look at, oh yes. Authorize staff to reject all bids received for the Kennedy High School modernization project. Can you all?
Yeah, I'm happy to give some background information on this. So the board approved $25 million total for the budget for Kennedy High School. And I believe that was established initially and then revised in last spring, I think at 25 million for some increased scope. And when we sent out that information to receive bids, which we would do in any construction project of that sort, we got the bids back. We opened up the bids as required, and all of the bids have come in significantly above that price, ranging from over 31 million to just over, I think, 34 million off the top of my head. I think that's somewhere in the range. And so what staff is recommending at this time is that we reject those bids, because in order to go out and seek new bids, we first have to reject the current bids. What I want to be clear on is the rejection of bids is only rejecting the bids provided by these potential contractors. It is not rejecting the project in total, nor is it reallocating the money from the project itself. The budgeted money for Kennedy will stay budgeted out of Measure E for Kennedy High School. But what staff would like to do is reject these bids, look at the scope of the project, have some additional discussion about the best use of a $20 to $25 million budget at Kennedy. And if the board would like to move forward with a project at Kennedy that exceeds that budget, we can certainly do that as well. We just need to have more conversation about where we will garner that additional funding. If it comes from Measure E, then we'll have to revise the current list of projects that are slated to receive funding. And if it's going to come from another source, we'll have to identify that source as well. So ultimately, I think the most important thing to make clear is that there remains a commitment to complete the project at Kennedy High School. We just need to be strategic about how we best spend those dollars. Associate Superintendent Hillman may be able to add some additional information to this as well.
Thank you.
That's absolutely correct. And I would add only one thing, and that is that public contract code states that when an entity like us, a public entity, accepts bids or receives bids, I should say, for a project, the board has to act within a certain amount of time. And that time is coming. It would actually be sometime next week, I think, or the next 10 days. So this was the last regular board meeting for us to be able to present to you an action to take. So the options are you accept the low bid or you reject all bids. And so this is the recommendation, not for any other reason other than we have to take action as a district to stay in compliance with public contract code. But this action, as CJ said, has nothing to do with our commitment to the Kennedy community or the dollars that have been allocated to the Kennedy project. We just have to rethink about how we're going to deliver the Kennedy project and try to get it within budget.
Thank you both for the clarification and the explanation of the procedure. And my question is, usually how long it takes to get a bid back?
It depends. There's a little bit of strategy that you want to use as a district. You want to give the contractor enough time to ask questions, to walk the school site, to be very comfortable with the scope so that they are putting a number that is accurate. Oftentimes what a contractor will do is that if all the information is not available or their questions didn't get answered, or they're being asked to do something very quickly where they haven't had a chance to put a lot of thought or calculation into it, is they'll just increase the number just to be safe, just to cover themselves. And that's kind of understandable.
Yes.
If someone asked you to make a promise or a commitment, you would probably inflate your number just to make sure you have all of your costs covered if you don't know all the details. So a good bid package provides enough time and enough detail and enough responsiveness from staff to make sure that the contractor feels as though they have all of their questions answered, so they feel comfortable in providing us the lowest number that they can.
Right, makes sense. But my question is, we approved in December 10th, in 2019 for 25 million. And now this is 3 years down the road, and now we are doing the bidding for the construction.
Yes.
What's the typical time it takes to
on a project this
stage?
size? Yes. And here's why. It isn't that the bids were out from 2019 till now.
I understand. Yes.
Yeah,
We're doing the design. We're doing the testing. Right. Yes.
That's right. So it's really the design work that took the majority of the time. And as scope was added at the previous meetings over time, additional scope was added and approved by the board. That also added more design time to the architect. And then there was one additional element with this project that added maybe about 3 to 5 months, maybe 6 months. And that was the add-on of the interim housing that was needed to pull this project off. So the way that this project was developed was that certain buildings would be emptied of students and they would be put into temporary housing on the campus that's approved by the state. And that design package took a few additional months for approval. And then they came back to the Kennedy, the project in front of you, and confirmed it. But they put it on pause while they evaluated the temporary interim housing package. So that added a little bit of time as well.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just the question is going forward. We can ask. I mean, those contractors, those builders, their name looks like familiar. We have done business with them, so we can submit. We can ask more builders to submit bids. But unless we kind of tight the construction scope, and I don't think the number going to be reduced, to 25 million. That's what I expect.
Right. And I think that's the reason, that Trustee Zhang, as you're pointing out, that's why we need to bring it forward to the board, because as Associate Superintendent Hillman is indicating, when we receive the bids, we only have one of two options. One is to accept the low bid. The other is to reject all bids. If we accept the low bid as is, then what we're doing is exceeding the budgeted amount established by the board, and we have no identified funding source in order to accept and approve that bid.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the board would like us to accept the low bid in this case, then we need to identify a different funding source, and we need to make sure that at that increased price, that's the best way to support Kennedy High School, with the low mark being 31 point something million dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are important conversations to have. And as the board has told us before, the board would like to be involved with any conversations and decisions regarding an increase or a decrease in the scope of project, or any discussion about value engineering. So for that purpose, we're bringing it forward for the board.
Okay, thank you. But I would like, in the meantime, can we actually given I would like to know that what are we doing, to submit more bids? Is that we are trying to reevaluate the design scope, the construction scope, so we can tighten up the budget? Or
Well,
what else?
that's part of what the board can give as direction to staff on Wednesday night at the meeting, because what the board has told us is that if we are going to be changing the scope of a project, the board as a governance group would like to be the driver of that conversation and involved in that conversation. Because what is more difficult, in my opinion, and I think the board's perspective as well, is when staff and vendors provide a significant change in scope, and then it's just brought to the board, and the board has not been provided the opportunity for input, dialogue, discussion, direction. And so that is part of the discussion that can take place on Wednesday night. But I have not given staff direction to change the scope of the project at this time, because we haven't had that direction from the governance team.
Right. Okay. I'm just thinking, after we reject, then what? You see? Okay, let's discuss then. But I'm just thinking, from 2019, 25 to now, which is around 33 million, the increase is about 10% a year. Is that normal? When you get a bid. So anyway,
I would say not typically, but we are also experiencing the most significant inflation event we've seen in 40 years. And so just like it hits our individual pocketbooks and at the gas pump and other places, groceries and things, it has the same effect on supply chains that feed projects like this. And it's worth noting that this project is primarily an HVAC replacement project. And all of those components are tied very, very closely to the supply chain increases. That's one of the main drivers of this cost coming in higher. It isn't that anybody didn't sharpen their pencil or is trying to add on or was too loose with the budget. That's not the situation. This is really indicative of just the overall marketplace for goods and services.
Right. Yes. So just a question. So if we start a project, well, no, we cannot we are doing all this project in parallel, right? We're not doing one project, fix, let's say, Honor, or and after that finished, we will move to Kennedy. It's not. We're doing things parallelly. It's just the design takes time, 3 years. Okay.
In this case, yes. It's also worth noting that it isn't just 3 years of time. It's also that the Kennedy project was moved from a lower prioritization to a higher prioritization. So in that time frame, a lot has changed. When that decision was made, that was pre-pandemic, and then the pandemic came, so there was delays inherent there. So there's been a lot of interesting, very unique, perfect storm types of situations that have occurred in the last 3 years that I think add to the timeline. That's not terribly normal if you go back, but the pandemic is so weird that it's really thrown a lot of things off. So I don't think that, given the history and what I've looked at, how this project started with a lower prioritization, moved to a higher prioritization prior to the pandemic, the additional scope, the delay at DSA, I can see how it took this long. And I think to Superintendent Kamick's point, our next step after having the board take action on this item is to go back to the design team and see what the options are. What options do we have? And then we plan to bring those options to you to be able to say, board, what direction would you like to give us? Because we all know we made a promise to the Kennedy community. We want to keep it, but we also want to make sure that we're spending our dollars the wisest way that we can. And here are the options in which to do that. Or if this is the project that we want, then we need to increase the budget, and that has ramifications for other things. But all of those options we will bring to you in a way that the board can then provide us the right direction.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So.
And the only thing I would add, Trustee Zhang, to that is, as we conclude this topic, is as Associate Superintendent Hillman is talking about different options, all of those options will be confined to a structure in which the project moves forward at Kennedy.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we're focused on. So I just want to make that clear in case we have any viewers that are concerned about the level of commitment to ensuring a successful project at Kennedy.
Absolutely. The direction would never change. Is we're going to move forward and finish. Okay, let's look at 15.8. Authorize staff to purchase wireless technology infrastructure and the device with CDWG for the middle school conversion project. Well, I am not totally familiar with this. I did not read this.
So that's okay. I'll give you the 5,000-foot view, and if I'm missing the details, I'm sure our Associate Superintendent may be able to fill those in. So what we have is our 3 junior highs that are converting to middle schools. And as we complete those projects and reach completion, one area of those projects includes wireless access points to ensure that our network system is appropriate for the work that students are doing and the work that staff is doing. And so to ensure that wireless network is appropriate, we need to move forward with the expenditure of these wireless access points. And CDWG is a vendor that provides that for us. And so that's why we're recommending the purchase.
Okay. So thank you. So for every renovation of this, then we do need to do the infrastructure internet, right?
Yes.
Okay. But this is a new construction.
Right. So this is new construction. Ideally, anytime we're doing construction on a building, we would be upgrading our infrastructure. That's the most ideal thing to be doing, because once a wall is open or a roof is open, we want to maximize what we can do with that open space. I can't speak to the projects before I got here, but ideally, anytime we're going to be doing work at a school site, we want to make sure we're taking care of the infrastructure. Whether it's new construction, that new construction is pretty much always going to deal with that. Renovation and remodeling, we need to be more explicit that it deals with that. But in any time that we're doing construction, we want to be looking at our technology infrastructure.
Okay. So does this, okay, this is the internet. Is this connected with the projection, a projector, TV? Remember we talked about that? No. So
No, this is This is just access to the network through wireless access.
Okay. All right. So so that's it. Because I think that the items of solar and also the CC, what is the short term? You know, the plan for $1 million. Those are very detailed. I'd rather have a detailed discussion at the regular board meeting. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here.
Thank you, Trustee Zhang. Thank you, staff.
Okay, see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.